Hello, today we're going to be working on comparing and ordering rational numbers. So we worked the previous lesson on converting all these rational numbers from decimal to percent, percent to decimal, decimal to fraction, etc. So just a quick reminder here that any number can be written as a fraction is called one of our vocabulary words. We call these rational numbers. So all of these are going to be examples of rational numbers here. So we're going to write them as fractions. So the number 13, well, that is just 13 wholes, right? So 13 over 1. 0, we can write that as 0 over 1, or 0 over 2, or 0 over any number we wanted to choose, really. Just dividing 0 by anything will give us 0. Integer here, we've got negative 3 wholes, so negative 3 over 1. Mixed number into improper fraction. If we remember, we multiply our large number by the denominator here. So 4 times 3 is 12. And don't forget to add that extra 1 that we have up top. So 12 plus 1 is going to give us 13 thirds. And finally, 17%. Well, remember, percent means out of 100, so we're going to write that as a fraction out of 100. And always reduce, but in this case we cannot because 17 is prime and does not go into 100. There's no number that will multiply into 117. So how are we going to order and compare these rational numbers? Well, we need to change all of our numbers to decimals. Then we want to stack the numbers vertically, and remember to line up your decimal points because that's going to be the easiest to compare these. Then we're going to compare starting with the first numbers in decimal numbers. So example here, we are going to compare 35% and 3/8. Well, here they've taken 35% and changed it into a decimal. And we also have 3/8 turned into a decimal. So we have a 0 and a 0 here. We have a 3 and a 3 here. And then we notice that 7 is going to be bigger than the 5 that we have over here. So 3/8 is going to be bigger than 35%. Alrighty, so next we have putting these in descending order. So remember, descending means down, or going from biggest to smallest number here. So I know these quickly off the top of my head, but remember to divide these out if you don't know them. So negative 1/5 is going to be negative 0.2, or let's call that negative 0.2. Negative 14% will be negative 0.14. If we remember how to convert that, take our decimal and move it twice to the left. 1 and 1/2 will be 1.5. And then 1.32 is just, or let me line these up again, sorry. 1.5, then 1.32 finally here. So we're going to compare, and since we're going down, we will put our biggest numbers out front here. So we have a 1 and a 1, so we know that these two will be the biggest, and no negatives with that 1. And then we compare the 3 and the 5 here, and 5 is bigger, so we have 1 and 1/2 will come first. Well, 1.32 is the only positive number left, so that's going to be next. And then we have to compare these two negative numbers. So remember, the bigger numbers get when they're negative, the smaller they really are. So we're going to compare the 2 and the 1, and 1 is closer to 0 than 2 is in the negative sense, so that will be bigger than negative 0.2, so we've got negative 14%, excuse me, that was how it originally was, leaving us finally with negative 1/5 here. So that's how we're going to put in order here. So what is going to be bigger here? Well, 0 is just 0, right? I'm going to do this off to the side, so 0.0. And negative 32% will be negative 0.32. And 0 is bigger than negative 3 in this case, so 0 will obviously be bigger. It's also further to the right of negative 3.2, so it's bigger. So we've got 0.15 it gives us here. We want to turn everything else into a decimal, so 3/20 is going to be 0.15. Well, when we have these in decimals, we notice that these two numbers are equal. And now we have 1.27 times 10 to the first power. So remember, converting from scientific to decimal number, well, that 1 tells us to move our decimal place once. So we're going to have 12.7. And then 12 2/3 will be 12.666 repeating. Or we could round that off and a couple spaces and give that 12.667. Well, we have 1s are the same, 2s are the same, and then finally 7 is bigger than that 6 here, so we know that this will be bigger than our 12 2/3. Alrighty, so always remember when we're converting, convert to decimals here and then compare. So negative 1/3, we're going to have negative 0.333. I think it's safe to stop right there. 20%, we will have 0.2. And you can add zeros if you want here, it doesn't matter. And then negative 0.25. And once again, we can have a 0. So we want to go in ascending order, so we're writing these from smallest to largest. So the biggest negative number will actually be the smallest. So compare the two negatives, and then 3 is the bigger number for our negatives here. So it will actually be the smallest since we're dealing with negatives. So negative 1/3 will come first. Next, well, we have a negative and a positive, so we know the negative number will come next. So we have negative 0.25. And then finally, the only number we have left here is 20%. Alright, and now greatest to least, so we are going to have 2.13 times 10 to the negative first while we're moving our decimal place once. So we're going to have, in the end of all this, 0.213. 1/4 is 0.25. We can add our 0 or not, doesn't matter, excuse me. Then convert this to a decimal, and we've got 0.280. So greatest to least, so we want our biggest number first. Well, we have 2's are all the same there, and in our next column, well, 8 is going to be the biggest. So the first number here, sorry, greatest to least, yep, so we are going down. So the 8 is the biggest, so that was 28% will come first. We can keep comparing in this column. 5 is bigger than the 1, so 1/4 will come next. And then finally 0.213, so that was our 2.13 times 10 to the first, and now we have those in descending order, or greatest to least. Alright, so the independent practice will start here. It's on the copy of the notes on our Canvas portal there, so just be sure that you complete these 4 problems before you move on to the assignment continued section. All right, we will see you on the